Welcome to the Life After Sugar podcast, the podcast that's not just about sugar, but about your relationship with it and also with food and especially with yourself. So if you want to discover your life after sugar and hear inspiring stories from all kinds of people who also cut out sugar in their way, at their pace, for their own reasons, this is the podcast for you. Because when you take away the sugar, you can finally discover the real sweetness in your life. I'm your host, Netta Gorman, and did you know that it's been almost a decade since I first stopped eating sugar, flour, and sweeteners? I can hardly believe it myself. And in this episode, I'd like to share with you one of the things that I discovered that made living sugar-free and therefore craving-free so easy. I'll tell you all about that in just a minute. But first, I just wanted to tell you that if you're looking for some free resources, then I have plenty for you. First, download my 5 tips to get rid of cravings. And those 5 tips may not be what you think they are. So go to aftersugarclub.com and download your 5 tips today. Come check out the Life After Sugar Facebook page and subscribe to the Life After Sugar YouTube channel, as well as my Instagram account at My Life After Sugar, which is where you'll get all kinds of inspiration so that you can see that it's perfectly possible to live a happy and active life, even if you don't eat sugar. You can also check out my TikTok account at Netta_lifeaftersugar. All right, so I want to share with you something that I talked about quite a few years ago, but it still holds true for living an easy sugar-free life. So today's subject is about how you can change your tastes so that you don't crave sugar and sweet foods anymore, even if you think that is impossible. How you can change your tastes so that you don't crave sugar and sweet foods anymore. Now, I have to tell you that all my life, I was a real sweet tooth. People made desserts just for me, and my whole identity was wrapped up in my love for sweet foods. Sweet foods, desserts, chocolate, ice cream, whatever. Chocolate was my best friend. It really was. It was always there for me when I needed comfort, when I needed to celebrate, when I felt tired. Chocolate was there for me. And the other thing that I realize now that I didn't realize at the time was that I had to eat when I got up in the morning. Otherwise I would be in a terrible mood and impatient and just cranky if I didn't have something to eat as soon as I got up. And the type of breakfast that I used to have was what I considered to be a regular breakfast, toast, cereal, maybe some kind of pastry or whatever. And that was just normal for me. And also what was normal was not being able to wait 1 minute when I got up in the morning before I had breakfast. I also ended every meal with something sweet. I couldn't imagine ending a meal without some kind of dessert. It could be what I consider to be a real dessert, ice cream or cookies or whatever, or it could be a so-called healthy dessert with either fruit or some kind of yogurt with fruit or something like that. But for me, that wasn't a real dessert. And I also always had snacks on hand. So I used to have snacks hidden in my drawer at work. I used to have snacks, hidden away in my car. I used to always carry around snacks with me just in case I got hungry. It was like I couldn't imagine being somewhere or going for more than a couple of hours without having a snack handy. And of course, those snacks were always sweet snacks. So that was part of my identity. I didn't perceive that I had any kind of problem with sugar, and I didn't really have a weight problem, so I couldn't see what sugar was doing to me. But back in 2015, I got some life-changing advice to cut down or even cut out sugar. And that seemed completely crazy to me. I said, no, 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 no way. No way does this have anything to do with sugar. Sugar and chocolate is what's getting me through this. It's what's making me feel better. And there's no way that I'm going to cut out all the foods that I love the most, right? So I was in total denial. I resisted this for the longest time. And while I was resisting this, I carried on feeling crappy, quite literally. So I did nothing. I changed nothing. And guess what? Nothing changed. I want to take a quick break to say that if this is your first time here, then welcome and thank you for listening to this podcast. And whether you're new or a regular and you haven't yet rated or reviewed this podcast, could I ask you to scroll down and tap on the stars to rate this podcast and also to write a short review to let me know how this podcast is helping you in your life after sugar. For example, here's a 5-star review from Deak Rips from the United States, who says, I appreciate the length of these episodes. Short enough to listen without daydreaming, long enough to be informative. Very well done. Thank you. I love reading your reviews. And when you rate and review this podcast, not only does it encourage me to continue making new episodes, but it also helps to share this podcast and have more people see it so that we can help more people feel better and lose weight with less sugar. So again, thank you for rating and reviewing this podcast and for spreading the word about sugar. Well, it took a few weeks, and I think it actually took a few months for me to get off my high horse and to say, okay, I'll try something different. And I give myself credit for opening up my mind to trying something that seemed crazy and that I'd never tried before. But, what I was trying before wasn't working. So having an open mind in the end actually opened up this whole new world for me that I didn't even know existed, that I now call life after sugar. And I stress the fact that it's life after sugar and not life without sugar. Because for me, without has a negative connotation, whereas after leaves room for each individual to decide what their before and after is going to look like in terms of sugar. But let's not play with semantics here. My point is that the thought of not eating sugar, honestly, I was shocked. I thought, what am I going to eat for my dinner, for my meals? Am I going to eat ice cubes? Is this what my eating is going to look like? Because I could not imagine, when you take away the sugar and the flour, I couldn't imagine what was left to eat. And this made me very nervous. And again, it was my open-mindedness that saved me. And I also couldn't imagine what life would be like if I couldn't reach out for sugary snacks to get my energy back and just out of habit and to feel better during the day. It was like I felt I was going to lose out on a lot. And this is why I resisted it for the longest time. And so it wasn't an easy, like let's do this kind of situation for me. It really was a struggle at first, and I couldn't imagine what I would eat if I didn't eat pasta or fries or pizza or rice or something starchy, with my meals, and especially bread, because bread was like my thing. So I had to prepare myself mentally, but it was just for 2 weeks. So you can do anything for 2 weeks. And it ended up that no, I didn't have ice cubes and just a tiny bit of salad for my meals. It wasn't at all like that. It ended up that actually what I was eating for those 2 weeks was what we call real food, real food, unprocessed foods, unprocessed proteins, meat, fish, or plant-based proteins, nuts and seeds, and lots of veggies, and even some fruit, because that's naturally occurring sugar. That was fine with this 2 week period. And it kind of changed my whole outlook, because nobody told me this. And it felt like this was some kind of top secret. Here's what I discovered. Nobody told me this, that over time, your tastes can change if you let them, because you can train your taste buds to enjoy less and less sweetness. And this is what happened to me. This is what I discovered in just the first 2 weeks, that my tastes changed. And what tasted bland in the past was now tasting good. And that anything that I found was sweet and good was now tasting too sweet. Was that even possible? Well, that's what I found for me. I actually started to concentrate and appreciate the tastes of real foods, and to find that the sweetness in foods was actually amplified because I wasn't eating sugar anymore. And I didn't know this at the time, but I can tell you this now, that my cravings were actually a lot less acute because I wasn't replacing sweets and sugar and chocolate with other types of sweet foods. So I didn't have the cravings that I was worried about. I did have cravings, but they weren't as bad as I was worried about, because I wasn't replacing them with other types of sweeteners or sweet foods. And this is what I want to share with you. Here's what you need to know, that if you replace sugar with other sweet tastes, you will perpetuate your liking for sweetness. And you can decide if you want to cut out sweet foods 100% all at once, or gradually. It's up to you. Nobody has the answer for you. And you can decide whether you want to kind of do an experiment like I did for just 2 weeks, or whether you're just going to take it one day at a time. It's up to you. And for me, this gave me my power back to decide how to do it my way, even though I had someone there guiding me and telling me, well, look, try for a period of 2 weeks. No sweeteners, no sugar, no flour. And if you think that's crazy, well, remember, so did I. And I'm not saying here that you have to do the exact same thing that I did. I'm just saying that sometimes what may feel completely crazy is maybe exactly what we need to make real and lasting change. And one fun thing that I want to suggest to you as my first tip is to turn this whole experiment into a game. And I invented a game that we play with my family from time to time that I call the tasting game, which is to learn to appreciate other tastes than just sweet tastes, and to learn to train your taste buds. So the tasting game is when you put on a blindfold. And it's fun to play this with your family, and especially with kids, where a person will choose a food that's not sweet tasting, put a little bit on a spoon, and ask you to taste it. And then you have to describe what it tastes like, and to guess what that taste is. So, for example, bitter tastes like black coffee, or spicy tastes like hot pepper, although I don't recommend putting a whole piece of hot pepper in someone's mouth, but something that has some kind of spice in it. Sour tastes like lemons or limes, salty umami tastes like, for example, anchovies or seaweed, or other types of crunchy sour tastes like pickles, for example. And you can invent all kinds of tasting games. And the goal of it is A, to have fun, which is kind of like my goal in life, but also to really be appreciative of all the other tastes, and to become more aware that there are plenty of other tastes not just sweetness, so that you're not always running to sweet tastes to appreciate how things taste. And the other thing that I realized during this 2 week period and beyond, because I felt so great after these 2 weeks that I just continued, the other thing that I noticed was that it was totally weird for me not to finish a meal with something sweet. And I felt like I didn't know what to do with myself after a meal. It was weird. So I would say to you, my tip is, first of all, get comfortable with a little bit of discomfort, with it feeling weird because, well, it's a new habit. You're changing the habit of a lifetime, and that is weird. But at first, I would end a meal with either some cheese, and I love different types of cheeses, so this allowed me to discover all kinds of different cheeses. Or you can finish a meal with some of the non-sweet or lesser sweet fruit like berries, or maybe a little bit of lime squeezed in some water, or maybe some other citrus fruit. I would try plain yogurt with some cocoa powder because that got me through the hump of missing chocolate. And cocoa powder is bitter, it's not at all sweet. So I would add some nut butter, and that would actually sweeten it up a little bit, or some pieces of fruit like these non or less sweet fruit, blueberries or raspberries or strawberries. And that would actually hit the spot and tide me over until I actually got used to finishing a meal with something else than food, finishing a meal with, I don't know, a conversation, or after the conversation with some herb tea or coffee, or going for a walk, or sometimes even doing the dishes and listening, to, I don't know, maybe a podcast that you enjoy. But anything that gives you enjoyment and kind of helps you to cut that, I would say, automatic habit of finishing a meal on a sweet note. And it'll take some time. It took some time for me too. And this, for me, I realized afterwards, really, really helped to reduce the cravings. Why? Because I wasn't looking for sweet tastes. Sweet tastes for that temporary period were off the table, quite literally. And I was kind of forced to find other ways to get comfort and reward than with chocolate or with desserts. And I'm not saying it was necessarily easy, but in some ways that helped me not to fall off the wagon, or at least not as often. Because when you step back and you realize that the crave-worthy foods, the foods that we crave, are 99% processed foods and actually engineered, created by the food industry to make you crave them, to make you not be able to stop at just a little bit. They are engineered, created by the food industry to make you want more and more. And you may be caught in this cycle. You eat sweet foods, you like sweet foods, and then you crave sweet foods, and it just goes round and around. And what I found, and I can tell you, is that you could get off this cycle and create a positive cycle where you eat non-sweet foods. And eventually, what happened to me, and what can happen for you too, is that you end up disliking sweet tastes. And this is what gets you free from sugar and from cravings, because you don't even like those kinds of tastes anymore. And if you don't like the extra sweet tastes, then you're not craving them anymore. But it does take some time and effort on your part. My biggest tip is to try it. Try it. What have you got to lose? And yes, this mindset shift is much easier said than done, which is why I created the Freedom from Cravings Formula program. If you want to feel free from cravings and in control around sugar, then here's how to do it. First, go to the description along with this episode and click on the link to book a clarity call with me. or just go to aftersugarclub.com and click on the big green button, Book a Clarity Call. That's the first step, because then we'll get to talk together to see how the Freedom from Cravings Formula program can help you. The Freedom from Cravings Formula program is specifically designed by me, with my 10 years of experience living sugar-free, to help you get rid of cravings so that you can slim down and finally feel in control around food, especially sugar. In the program, you'll get step-by-step guidance and customized support through the 5-step formula that I've developed to help you get control over cravings so that you can finally live your life with more energy and fit into your favorite clothes effortlessly and feel confident in your food choices so that you can ditch the shame and embarrassment that you feel every time your emotions make you slip or fall off the wagon, and so that you never feel like you're on some kind of a restrictive diet. If you're at the stage of your life where you're finally ready to look after yourself, let's chat. You can hop on a free clarity call with me at any time by going to aftersugarclub.com and clicking on the big green button, Book a Clarity Call. We'll have a quick 30-minute one-on-one chat where you'll be able to tell me more about your challenges and goals, and we'll be able to see how the Freedom from Cravings Formula program can help you. So go to aftersugarclub.com. Speak soon. That's it for this week. Keep in touch and see you soon for another episode.